I'm Vinicius Lummertz. Vinicius is Vinicius, Lummertz, Lummertz, and I'm the president of Embratur, National Tourism Board of Brazil.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us, Vinicius, here at London on day one of World Travel Market. And to start with, I was wondering if you could tell our readers a little bit about the efforts the Brazilian Tourism Board is taking to keep Rio de Janeiro in people's minds following the Olympic Games.
Well, I think Rio was very successful in terms of events on the last 10 years. You see in the Olympics, but before the Olympics we had the World Cup and a series of very important large events during the cycle of 10 years. And Rio has doubled its capacity in terms of hotel rooms. It's now with 60,000, more than 60,000 hotel rooms. It was one of the cities, perhaps the city that hosted the largest amount of both public and private investment in the last 10 years. So it's a city ready to grow twice or three times against its own size 10 years ago. Now, there comes the need for international promotion. Now, the way we're trying to do this is somehow similar to what Miami did in the 90s and 80s when it grew out of its own crisis. Through a calendar, through a series of events that we're launching today in an event in Camden for 40 influencers. And we're launching tomorrow here also events that will be ranging from the traditional Carnival and New Year's Eve with 1 million people in Copacabana and all that, to new events in gastronomy and music and fashion, which amount to 100 different events during the year. Now, we're packaging that. Because that is one thing Rio does well, events. That's why we're doing that. That, I think, is the way to keep Rio up, and one of the doors to Brazil. There are 20 different doors to international flights in Brazil, but Rio is still a traditional door of entry in this country.
Yes, the gateway, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, people in Rio like to think in terms of gateway. If you ask other cities, they want to discuss that. But Rio, yes, it's in the imagination of everybody in the world of what Brazil is about. Although Brazil is more than that. It's a huge country with many different possibilities. Rio is very, very symbolic of the country.
We spoke there about a couple of the big events, obviously perhaps the two most well-known ones being the Olympics and the World Cup. Now that the dust has settled on the Olympics in particular, do you see it as a worthwhile investment? How has it impacted visitor numbers?
Well, visit numbers have grown this year, but also they have been impacted by other issues. We have been through a recession in Brazil in the last 2 to 3 years, and we're getting out of this recession right now. And tourism is helping Brazil getting out of this recession. But I think that's not the most important issue here. I think the most important issue and the most important legacy, alongside with investments, was the consciousness of tourism as a main potential of Brazil's industry to the next century, perhaps. Brazil has a huge potential. I would think the largest potential in the world for tourism. And in terms of untapped resources, we have no doubt about it. So it will mean a lot of opportunity for Brazilians, for jobs for the next generations, and for foreign investors. That's why we're going through those reforms. We need reforms to be more attractive to business. That's what we are working hard on.
Absolutely. But there is an image that Rio is crime-ridden and maybe unsafe for tourists. How far does this differ from the reality?
Well, big cities in the world have issues of security. The issues of security in Rio are not connected with international terrorism. They are connected with internal gangs that deal with drugs. The federal government is tackling that by bringing 9,000 soldiers of the national force, and we are doing a special effort in the frontiers to control the problem as a whole. The efforts to try to deal with the problem in terms of Rio alone were proven not enough. It's a more complex problem and is going to be dealt in the long run. Now, as for safety, when you go to events like ones we mentioned,
yes,
and the Carnival, 2 or 3 million people soon, or New Year's Eve in Copacabana with 1 million people, I ask you back a question. Are you safer in any capital of Europe or in the United States, in a big city in the United States? Are you safer than in Rio during New Year's Eve with 1 million people in Copacabana? I don't think so.
Well, you're taking all
the world.
Large cities
It's
share
the
same
world.
issues.
It's the world that's not safe. It's the world with problems. Now, what happened in the favelas? We have to ask ourselves a question. When this tourism in favela was developed, it was a good idea and it still is. But if we have a crisis in the favelas, should tourism be developing and keeping up that product right now? Maybe we have to think it over. Or else, where else in the world has that idea developed of turning a dangerous urban area into tourism when you have a crisis? Would you do that in Saint-Denis outside Paris, where you have an Arab community that has some possibility of hosting some possible participants of international terrorism, or around Brussels? Would we do that? Or in a dangerous area, more dangerous areas of London? Are we going to visit there? Why are we doing that in Rio now? That is a question that should be raised. And I'm very comfortable and to be honest enough to say we have to think about it again at this moment. Well, we have to think about it. It's something, this anthropological, sociological, creativity type of thing, when it's dangerous, I don't think we have to do it automatically. I think we have to think it over.
Honest words, thank you. And I know the government has launched an ambitious scheme to improve Rio's infrastructure, which benefits both locals and tourists. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about this?
Well, I think Rio's infrastructure has improved a lot. We have 3 different new museums: BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit, the VLT, new metro lines, the infrastructure of hotels. Rio is just a matter of promotion on one side. On the other side is the idea that we have to tackle Rio's insecurity problems in the long run. No major city like Rio, with the problems it has, can have the idea or feed the idea that this is a simple problem to be tackled. I think it's a serious issue, but we are safe of one thing, that when we invite people to events in Brazil, large events, our rate of success and security has been very, very, very high.
That's great to hear, and congratulations on that. I wanted to ask you next about the Brazilian economy. It's rebounded following a change of political leadership. So I presume this has benefited tourism in Brazil? Yes,
tourism internally has grown this year, and the inbound international tourism has grown as well. We are, for the first month out of recession. Brazil is growing this year close to 1%, but from an economy that last year went down 3.6 and has been going in cumulative terms 8.6 in the last 2-3 years, we're back to growth, 1%. Next year, a little bit more than 2%. Now, that's refreshing. So people start trusting again in the economy. We are still going through some political turmoil, but I think that is going to be over as soon as the new round of elections, presidential elections, will start. I think around month of April, we will have a refreshing view of a new perspective on an election, which gives us a perspective for 4 to 8 years of a government which will benefit from the efforts of this government in terms of reforms. The labor reform passed within the political crisis. I think the social security reform will pass within a political crisis. So what Brazil shows in the end is that the third largest democracy in the world, with direct vote in the world, Brazil, is showing that this democracy is strong, that its institutions are strong, and it can deal with public criticism, it can deal with its own contradictions within democracy, and I think we are going through. It's not important to Brazil that we succeed. It's important for the idea of democracy, which in the world nowadays is very questioned by citizens, not only in Brazil but everywhere in the world. Democracy became dysfunctional, especially because of a lot of discussions that went outbound into the internet, and of quick positions by people that are not reflecting as citizens. We are learning how to become electronic citizens. This is a hard, very hard lesson to learn, to structures in terms of what democracy will be in the future. We are going through a test in Brazil, and we're passing the test, and I think it's a contribution.
Fantastic. And looking ahead, what can we expect to see from Brazilian tourism next year?
Well, Brazilian tourism next year will grow a little bit. We won't grow much, but I think the design of Brazilian tourism will be different. We have electronic visas starting to the US, Canada, Japan next January.
Can you tell us a bit about those?
I mean, those are new trends. Yeah? So if we have that in place, and which we will, Australia this month. So it's like an online visa, 72 hours for Americans, for Canadians, for Japanese, and for Australians in January. We're also opening to pass a bill which will allow foreign ownership of Brazilian airline companies. So it's bringing to the level of tourism the degree and the will of reform that we have shown in the macroeconomic level with labor and social security and all these large reforms, political reform and so forth. Now we're going through tourism. So I think the outlook of tourism is going to be a transformation during 2018, which will be very visible 2019, 20 onwards, which in turn will see, I think, a lot of foreign investment waiting, and will land in Brazil as soon as those reforms take place, because the environment will be much better and the potential is very high in Brazil. Brazil has 200 million travels within the Brazilian market. This is the third largest airline market in the world. The potential is there, and as the economy grows back again with the reforms, with more stability, tourism is coming from, I would say, a less important part of Brazil's economy to a more central role in the service sector, with creating jobs, and Brazil's government paying more attention. And that is part of the legacy of the events that were costly, were somehow in many ways were discussed appropriate or not, but in the end, in the long run, I think they'll pay off.
Great to hear. Well, we look forward to seeing Brazil realise its potential, and thank you ever so much for taking the time to speak to Breaking Travel News today.
It's my pleasure, Kay, and I hope to see you again in Brazil. All right.